police state. People don't really quite realize that. I mean, the TSA is a perfect example of that. It's absolutely out of control. It's just a for-profit thing, and it's absolutely stupid and pointless. They do not need either.
No.
If you want to, there's only two threats to an airplane with respect to terrorism specifically. One is a bomb, and one dog could stop a bomb. Okay, I'm sorry, you do not need.
But that's the they need the infrastructure for a lot of this sort of just make work nanny state.
Well, and the point is, it is not about terrorism. It's about population control. They fear that they are going. They're robbing us so quickly, and moving towards a police state, a one world government. All of this is going so quickly that they realize at some point we're going to have the 100th monkey. And the 100th monkey, when you get to that, I don't know if people know that expression. I probably shouldn't have used it because it takes too much explanation. But you get to a certain point, you have a flash point where everybody starts to understand.
A tipping point.
A tipping point. And at that point, I think people are going to start reaching for guns. And I am, in point of fact, calling for an armed revolution. And I want everybody to raise their arm, clenched fist, and say, no, I ain't going to put up with it.
Absolutely.
And but other people are thinking AK-47s. And so I think that they are planning for a point and want a point.
And pushing people to that point.
Yes, they want a point where they have to declare martial law, suspend the Constitution. They have a whole other Constitution already in place. I have a copy of it in my book, Fatal Rebirth. And you won't like it. It sounds very nice when you read it. It flows very nicely. It sounds very much like what we have. But if you actually look at the analysis in depth, it is a very scary document. It basically gives rights to you on condition, and it can take them away retroactively.
Which
you
sounds
could be
just
guilty of a law retroactively. They pass a law today and prosecute you because you did it 5 years ago.
So if we can't get you with pre-crime, we'll get you with retro-crime.
That's right.
But that sounds exactly like the United Nations Human Rights Charter that lays out this long, luxurious list of rights with the stipulation at the end that we can take any of these away at any moment.
Exactly.
Provisionary.
And there's also a whole other world constitution that is being ratified quietly by other nations and eventually will come to us for ratification.
And they never thought a European Union would take place, but now here we are, and it's been in place for 50 years, somewhat quietly, loudly, and publicly for the last 10.
Exactly.
Meanwhile, well, that couldn't happen here in North America.
But yes, we have the North American Union folks who are working very hard to unify Mexico, Canada, and the U.S. We have the Canamex Highway. I saw a Canamex truck the other day. Actually had all three flags on it, and it said Canamex right across it.
And these are the things that whether we're talking about smart dust or superhighways or any of these topics, are things that they're being unveiled. Like either the mask is slipping, or it's this sort of revelation of the method that we're going to show you how this is all going to come down, but by the time you realize it, it's probably going to be too late. But these things that people see on TV or in the movies and think that, oh, that's just make-believe, but meanwhile, each little step just keeps coming into place slowly and surely for the most part, but then we have those catalyzing events that sort of fast-forward the agenda.
You basically cook a frog in a boiling pot. By raising the temperature slowly, they won't jump out of the pot. People are a little bit smarter than that, but not much.
And I guess to go back to the TSA situation, which again we reported on earlier in the show, that anticipating a possible backlash, the TSA sort of preemptively turned off a lot of the scanners on Wednesday to avoid any sort of protest, and then they could grandstand and say, see, everything's running smoothly.
Yeah, I think they basically are afraid. I mean, the TSA folks are afraid of a confrontation they can't handle. I would really love to organize. My form of a protest would be to have a whole bunch of people go down there naked. And maybe have some friends dressed in black and have their hands taped behind them and blindfolds and tape across the mouth and the initials. And maybe for their modest, they could put gloves over their breasts and genitals and have the initials TSA on them.
It almost seems to me that as this backlash was growing massively, and of course it was getting tons of mainstream media coverage because, again, they want to push us to the breaking point because they want us to break and crack so that they can do the crackdown. But it almost seemed that it's the carrot and stick. We'll turn off the scanners because you guys were getting a little mad. Almost seeming to be the choice that I have kind of speculated that the elites have sort of said that, well, you can have 1984, you can have the boot on the face of humanity forever, which we could see in the form of complete groping and molestation going on in the TSA. Or you can have Brave New World, a little shinier, happier police state where you'll still have your soma and your drugs and your entertainment. That is kind of the choice that they want to give the sheep. You can have 1984, you can have Brave New World. It's your choice.
Yeah, actually, there's a third choice, THX 1138.
Oh, Jesus.
But yeah, it is kind of interesting. And we're not talking really. I talk about shadow in my book like it's one giant organized conspiracy, but I'm also clear to say we don't know that. It could just as easily be a whole bunch of little fascists, basically, who happen to have a lying agenda, and so the various actions that they take dovetail very nicely with each other's interests, and so it seems like a broader conspiracy than it is. But even if it was a broad conspiracy, it doesn't take that much. You talk about the Bilderbergers. Basically, I fear them more than anybody. And in fact, I have a new book called Who's Killing the Bilderbergers, which I would hope to expose rather a lot about them. But the notion is you have ultra-rich people that meet secretly and won't tell you what they're talking about. But of course, it's nothing important.
Well, and I always like the analogy that could you imagine if 100 celebrities or football stars tried to have a secret meeting?
Just the fashion news alone warrants news coverage.
And just the extent that they would go to infiltrate that meeting of football players or movie stars.
Right, but in this case, it's the reverse. I mean, they literally buy a hotel for the period and fire all the staff and bring in their own people, and they do TSM security sweeps every day, several times a day. Armed guards, sometimes military vehicles, all manner of things. Anyway, you'd get a group like that. Each one of them has their own little minion, their own little corporate army, and their own friends in high places. And each friend in high place, he could be a very important friend. He might be a president of a country. He might be a congressman. He might be somebody who controls somebody. He might be a general. So it's very easy for a conspiracy to have enough people who control people to cause things to happen such that the people at the lower end have no idea what they're doing. They don't know that it's part of anything even nefarious in nature.
That they're compartmentalized.
They're completely compartmentalized, and so it'd be very easy for there to truly be a shadow-type conspiracy. So I do not discount it. I would prefer it were that way. I could fight that more easily than a whole bunch of little conspiracies.
That's the thing, and we hop back and forth between those on Media Monarchy because, of course, most of the research shows that, yes, there is a small amount of bloodlines and elites that seem to be connected.
Absolutely.
The other angle is there are really a lot of middle management gangsters battling for their little pieces of turf, and sometimes they have to bump each other off.
Exactly. Everybody has an agenda. Everybody has a goal. Everybody has a mechanism by which they can do it, but they also will have somebody who's enabling them. And those are the people you watch out for.
So, well, no, go ahead.
Well, I was just to say, I didn't want to lose track of, I said there were two things you worry about that TSA should be
yeah.
in charge of. One is the bombs. The other is, okay, you got somebody who's a terrorist going to come on the plane and try to use some kind of a personal weapon. I am sorry. There is nothing you can do about it. I don't care if you want to put 1,000 cops and strip search everybody. If you have a trained person who's going to get on the plane to cause mayhem, he can do it with that funny little thing on the end of his arm.
Yep.
It's called a hand.
Yep.
If you want to cut their hands off, you might be able to stop them. But, I mean, I could go on an airplane and make a weapon out of a scarf, a necktie, a string, a belt.
Or what about, I'm just reminded of
Shoelace.
the Clint Eastwood film In the Line of Fire, where John Malkovich plays an assassin who is inventing and creating a sort of ceramic gun that will go through the scanners.
Actually, a trained dog could catch the bullets.
Huh.
Yeah, the ceramic gun thing is kind of why they justify the body scanners.